Did you guys hear about the 34-year-old teacher that was essaying a 13-year-old student, and it turns out that they possibly have a 5-year-old child together? This woman's name is Laura Karen, and she was a 5th grade teacher in Middle Township Elementary School in New Jersey. So this whole thing started when Laura became the victim's teacher in the 5th grade. Laura and the victim's mother became friends, got to know each other, and she offered to take care of her kids. The victim, who was 11 years old at the time, was staying at Laura's house with his siblings regularly. Now, the kids went from going to Laura's house every day to then actually staying there permanently. It was said the kids did not go home anymore, and they basically lived in Laura's house from 2016 to 2020. During that time, the 11-year-old was being essayed by Laura, and allegedly they have a child together. Then fast forward a few years later, the victim's father saw a photo of Laura's child on Facebook, and he said, "This kid looks a lot like my son." He called police and an investigation began, and Laura was arrested, but they're still waiting on the DNA results. Now, when the siblings were asked if they saw anything weird going on in the house, they said that Laura and their brother slept in her bed every single night. And not only that, but apparently they also showered together, and they caught Laura essaying him one night. The siblings also said that when this baby was born, they knew that this was their brother's child, but they were told not to say anything because then Laura would get in trouble. This should be a wake-up call to people who leave their kids with literally just anyone. A lot of people believe that just because someone's a teacher, you can fully trust them, but what you may not know is that a lot of predators get positions that revolve around children just so that it's easier to get away with this kind of stuff.
This is horrifying. The rules are simple. 50 boys, 3 miles an hour, but if you stop walking, you die. And even though there's no finish line, no one knows how far the road goes, the only way to win is to be the last one alive. And with every mile, more boys are eliminated as the crowd cheers for who they think will be the champion. But why would anyone enter a contest like this? Is it because the prize is anything you could ever dream of, or because the only thing worse than dying is living the life that you walked away from? Some of the boys are doing it for the money. Some are doing it for the fame, but some of them just simply have nothing to lose. But if you want to see who's going to become the winner and just how far they have to go, check out The Long Walk in theaters September 12th. And guys, let me know, how far could you go?
Okay, breaking news. Rapper Sha Kingston has just been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. He and his mother were found guilty of ripping off car dealerships, jewelers, and a mattress company in this massive wire fraud scheme amounting to over $1 million. His mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison last month, and now it looks like Sha will be joining her. He was described in court as someone that was addicted to his celebrity lifestyle, even though he could no longer afford to maintain it. He has promised to pay back every cent to all of his victims once he is free and he can start working again, which will be when he is close to 40 years old. I don't want to hear somebody call 911.
This woman was left blind after her ex threw acid on her face, but then she forgave him and then married him. This is the story of Burfine Ozak. She was 18 years old when her ex-boyfriend threw acid on her face after she ended their relationship. Kasim Ozan had threatened Burfine multiple times before, but on January 2019, he waited until she left her house and he attacked her. She suffered severe burns, permanent disfigurement, as you can see in these photos, and she lost her vision in one eye. Kasim was arrested and was sentenced to 13 years and 6 months in prison, and Burfine initially testified against him, but things quickly changed. Absolutely no one expected this, but while Kasim was in prison, he wrote letters to Burfine. He apologized and expressed his love for her. And that's when eventually Burfine withdrew her complaint and stated that she still loved him and that she forgave him. Then in 2021, Kasim was released from prison early, and a year later, Burfine and Kasim got married. And of course, people were so upset and even concerned that this woman was being manipulated, and others just thought that she settled with this man because no one else would love her because of how she looked. Her own family also tried to stop her from marrying this evil man, but she insisted, and apparently they cut ties with her.
This is the only confirmed case of reincarnation in human history, and it's truly horrifying. In the quiet town of Goobersville, Indiana, in 1939, a young couple welcomed their baby girl, Mary. For the first few years, Mary seemed like any other child, until she started speaking strange words no one could understand. Her parents thought it was gibberish at first, but as she grew, it became clear. Mary was speaking fluent Chinese. The family was stunned. They had no ties to China. no exposure to the language. Seeking answers, they consulted language experts, who confirmed that Mary's Chinese was not only fluent, but filled with phrases no modern child would know. As the years passed, Mary's behavior grew stranger. One day, she pointed to an old map and insisted, "Take me here." The place? A remote village in China. Desperate for answers, her parents finally gave in. After a long journey, they arrived in the village. While riding a train through the countryside, Mary suddenly demanded they stop. She led them to an old farmhouse, ran to the door, and knocked frantically. An elderly man opened it, and without hesitation, Mary bolted inside. The family followed, stunned, as Mary removed a brick from the wall and pulled out a small, dusty doll. Clutching it tightly, she turned to the old man and whispered, "Don't you remember me? This was mine." The room fell silent. What Mary said next left everyone frozen in shock.
These are the scariest Japanese urban legends, part 3. This is Hachi Saku-sama, also known as the 8-foot-tall woman. And she's definitely the scariest Japanese urban legend ever. She takes the form of an impossibly tall woman with a very deep voice. And she loves preying on children from the ages of 9 to 11. She wears a white dress with a white hat and no shoes. Hachi Saku-sama stalks her victims for days before catching them, and sometimes up to months. But no matter what, if she's stalking you, you're dead 100%, because there is no way to escape Hachi Saku-sama. Her main powers are teleportation and invincibility. So whatever you do, if you see Hachi Saku-sama, just try and run. This is Kuchisaki Yona, also known as the Slip-Mouthed Woman. She's a very dangerous demonic Japanese spirit. She is recognized by her horrible slip mouth that is covered by a doctor's mask. This happened because her samurai husband found out she was cheating. He slit her mouth with his sword so she wouldn't be pretty anymore. She then died and now roams the earth as a vengeful spirit. She hides behind walls and bushes to stalk students after school. She then goes up to one of the students and asks if she's pretty. If the student replies no, she will immediately kill them with her huge scissors. But if the student said yes, she would take off her surgical mask and ask again. If the student then says no, she would then cut them in half. But if they say yes, she would then cut their face just like hers. Kuchisaki Yona is extremely dangerous, and I hope nobody ever sees her, because in my opinion, she might be the scariest urban legend of all time.
This is the photo of the girl who was turned into a human bodysuit. Yeah, they skinned her. There are real photos of the crime on the internet. I can't show them to you, obviously, but you can Google them. It was a 23-year-old college student who was struggling with depression. She ended up being sent to a psychiatric clinic on November 12, 1998, but ended up going missing instead. Her mother reported her missing to the authorities, and they told her to wait. And if they didn't wait, she might still be with us. And then in January 1999, a couple months later, a tugboat crew found human skin and her leg floating in the water. And initially, people thought this was an accident, but like, how does that become an accident? Like, when you see the photos, that was no accident. But then they kind of realized, oh, someone deliberately removed all of her skin and fashioned it into a bodysuit. Very unfortunately, the case went cold for a really long time. And then in 2014 to 2017, there was a lead. Notice the psychological profile of this guy named Robert J. He had really disturbing tendencies. He worked at a zoology institute where he killed the rabbits with no explanation, and he fit the profile of the perpetrator. But there's no real evidence that says that he did this crime, so they ended up letting him go. Unfortunately, justice has not been served for her yet. Her killer has not been found. And if you want to see the crime scene photos, just Google Katarazina crime, because they're too disturbing to show here. Over here for more content.
MrBeast just said that he will not end his current stream until he breaks the world record. He's 10 hours in and over 80% of the way there. He says that he wants to break the world record for the most amount of money raised for charity in a single stream. The current world record, by the way, is 11,972,000, and that was raised by 2 French streamers in 2021. Jimmy, XQC, and Aiden Ross have been streaming on Kick for over 10 hours, but they still have over $2 million left to raise. So the question is, which will break first? The world record or MrBeast?
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, part 10. Ronaldo Dogsa, a politician in the Philippines, took a picture of his family right before he was assassinated on New Year's Day in 2011. The man in the back shot him twice while his family was forced to watch. The man holding the puppy is Yukio Araki, a kamikaze pilot who just one day later would crash into the USS Brian, killing 66 of the crew members and taking his own life. Yukio was only 17 years old, knowing completely well that he'd be going to his death the next day. The smiling man in this photo is Nazi Joseph Goebbels, who is in a 1933 League of Nations meeting, and in the next photo, his expression completely changes. His expression changes from cheerful to hatred because someone told him that the photographer was of Jewish descent. This seemingly normal photo shows three men in judo attire. The man on the right, however, is Osama bin Laden, the terrorist responsible for the 9/11 attacks on New York City.
Let's talk about this picture. This is why if I ever have kids, I'll never let them use the bathroom alone. A 7-year-old girl and her mom were headed to Target, and she was getting some clothes for school. Her mom also wanted to grab some snacks for movie night. So while her mom went to go grab popcorn and other snacks, she told her daughter to go pick out clothes for school. When her daughter finally finished and picked out the clothes, she went up to her mom and said something strange happened. A sad pale lady had came up to her, telling her that she wished she could have her own daughter that looked just like her. The mom, who thought the daughter was just joking around, laughed it off and said, "Let's go." While heading to the register, the daughter shook her mom and said, "That's the lady who told me she wanted a daughter just like me," pointing at a mannequin. The mom laughed, thinking the daughter was still being silly. You know how kids have wild imaginations, always playing around. While at the register, the daughter had to go to the bathroom, so the mom told her to hurry up. It was only a couple hours down, by the way. While in the bathroom, the daughter texted the mom saying the pale lady's in here who wanted a daughter. The mom, trying to get in a rush back home to her other kids, said, "Hurry up, we have to go. Stop playing around." 10 minutes later, and the daughter never came out. The mother, who was waiting outside the bathroom at this time, rushes in the bathroom to see what the heck is going on. The daughter was nowhere to be found. She even checked the stalls to see if her daughter was hiding, standing on a toilet or something. On one of the stalls, she found her daughter's cell phone on the floor. By the way, if you made it this far in the video, comment down below your favorite fruit. Mine is mangoes. When she checked her phone, this was the last image found in it. Police still to this day have no explanation on what happened to that little girl.
How rare is your body? Only 1% of people can wiggle their ears voluntarily, and only 10% of people have a small hole above their ear. Do you have one? Only 20% of people can actually flare their nostrils. I thought everyone could do it. Next, only 2% of people have Norton's toe, where the second toe is longer than the big toe. Those are some weird toes. And finally, around 20% of people have a rare condition where they can taste colors and see sound. I guess tasting the rainbow could be a real thing.
What is the Siberian dancing lady? So you've probably seen this very eerie viral video of a woman dancing in the streets. The video allegedly depicts some kind of entity known as the Siberian dancing lady. According to some urban legends, if you look directly into the eyes of the Siberian dancing lady, apparently she will possess you or attack you or something of that nature. Side note, this is actually why you keep seeing those "sorry for looking into your eyes" comments. They are because of the Siberian dancing lady. The Siberian dancing lady is apparently known to jump in front of cars and dance in a very entrancing way that doesn't seem human-like. Now, there have been many reported sightings of this dancing lady, and they're all very, very creepy and very, very eerie. But so far, I don't think there's actually been any kind of report of someone being possessed by the Siberian dancing lady. So the part about her possessing you is probably made up. But there are so many videos of this dancing lady all over the internet that I personally believe she is a real thing, but we just don't know exactly what she is.
McKinley Chick-fil-A Marie has to be my favorite case of all time. Like, I actually get butterflies in my stomach every time I revisit this case. I'm just so fascinated by the killer. He was so dedicated. He was gorgeous, super, super dreamy. Like, if he wasn't behind bars, I would probably be with him. And just how dedicated he was to chopping her into bits and pieces. I mean, he really had no remorse, and we almost have to appreciate that. Like, the fact that he carried this chainsaw around for miles and miles, and after chopping her up, it just wasn't enough that he decided to also set on fire. I'm like, there's something hot about that. Siri, play "This Girl Is on Fire." We can make jokes now, guys. It's been a long time. The best part about this is that this killer had no remorse. During the court hearing, he actually sat and looked her family members dead in the eyes. Dead, get it, guys? And he actually just laughed the entire time. And you know what? I can appreciate a man who doubles down. Also, disclaimer before people get their panties in a twist, I am being super, super respectful of the family. I'm only sharing things that I've seen already on the internet, so I'm not making things up. These are just facts, and I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Breaking news, an Oregon serial killer has been indicted on a fourth victim. The suspect was charged with taking the life of 3 women and dumping their bodies in various locations. Now, as of Tuesday, he has been indicted on a fourth crime. He was indicted last year for taking the life of Bridget, Johanna, and Charity. 3 of his victims were found in Oregon, while one of them was found in an abandoned bar in Washington. Their bodies were located over several months starting in 2023. They were found in wooded areas and one in a culvert under a bridge. In addition to, they were all located within a 100-mile radius. At that time, it then sparked concerns of a possible serial killer in Oregon. At the time, authorities did not believe there was a connection between any of the victims. The suspect in this case was arrested in 2023 on unrelated charges. He was indicted in May of 2024 for the other 3 women. The indictment came just weeks before he was set to be released on the other unrelated charges. 22-year-old Kristen Smith was reported missing December 22, 2022. She was found deceased on February 19th. 24-year-old Charity Perry was found deceased near the Columbia River. According to authorities, she was located on April 24th. 6 days later, 31-year-old Bridget Webster was then located deceased. Then there's 22-year-old Ashley Reel, who was reported missing on April 4th. She was found in a wooded area by authorities. He has now been indicted on the charge of taking the life of 22-year-old Kristen Smith. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
The man you just saw in that video's name is Ricardo Lopez, but he's better known online as the Bjork Stalker. If you don't know, Bjork is an Icelandic singer, she's a pop star from her home country, and she's famous worldwide. But in the 1990s, a man from Georgia in the United States took an interest in Bjork and began planning a dark attack. At first, he started gathering information about Bjork, sending her fan letters, and he wrote all these delusions down in a journal. And as he continued writing in this journal, his thoughts descended into pure madness. Ricardo began expressing frustrations about his career as an exterminator. He ranted about how he couldn't get a girlfriend, discussed his feelings of inadequacy due to being overweight, and in the journal he made 408 references to Bjork, 34 references to unaliving himself, and 14 references to murder. In 1996, Ricardo saw that Bjork was in a new relationship with a new man, and he felt betrayed and decided he was going to kill her. At first, he planned on mailing her a bomb full of needles with HIV blood, but he decided that would be too hard, and he instead decided on a letter bomb filled with acid, hoping that it would either disfigure her or kill her, and that afterwards he'd take his own life and then they'd be reunited in heaven. So he constructed the bomb, mailed it off, then returned back to his house, painted his face red and green, and he then took his own life. After Ricardo's body was discovered, authorities intercepted the bomb package, and the package itself never even got close to Bjork.
This is a true horrifying story that took place in Ar'ar, Saudi Arabia. This story has also been aired on TV by a couple of imams confirming it. I will add the video source in the comments. A Saudi Arabian man from Ar'ar has 4 brothers. All 4 brothers are married except him. People always ask him, why didn't you get married yet? And he always gets aggressive when someone asks him about marriage. He hates it. He doesn't want to get married. So people knew this man is not someone you should speak about marriage with. A few weeks later, this man was invited to a wedding. In most Muslim countries, weddings separate men and women. The men's wedding was held at a farmland somewhere deep in the desert. As he was driving alone at night to the wedding, he heard a woman screaming, "Please don't leave me, please help." He panicked and quickly turned on Quran in the car. Every time he hears the woman screaming, he would look outside and see a wolf. The screams wouldn't stop, and every time there was a scream, the same wolf would appear. He eventually made it to the wedding, and then he told a couple of people what happened to him on the way there. On the next day, he tells his good friend what happened. They both hop in the car in daylight and they go look for that woman. For hours, they were looking. They found traces from the wolf, but they didn't find anything else. A week later, this man went to a majlis, and he announces that he is convinced to get married for some reason. And everyone there was shocked. You, out of all people, want to get married all of a sudden. Something is not right. He had enough. He decided to go to a sheikh, and he tells him the full story. I hated marriage. I always got aggressive when someone brought it up. One day, when I drove to a wedding at night, I heard a woman screaming for help, but all I saw was a wolf. And then a few days later, I was convinced with getting an arranged marriage. Please explain what is happening to me. The sheikh laughs and tells him, you were attached by an admirer, a jinn that was emotionally attached to you. She made you hate getting married. The night you drove in the desert, she was following you. She tried to possess you, but she couldn't. And that wolf you saw killed the jinn. Jinns are known to be afraid of wolves because a wolf is the only animal that can take a jinn's life. And when you heard a woman scream, it was the jinn getting attacked. And now, you are no longer against marriage because the curse you had was killed by a wolf.
3 jobs you won't believe actually exist. At number 1, a scuba delivery man. This here is an underwater hotel in Florida, and these guys need to eat, right? So there is a scuba diving pizza delivery man that delivers pizzas to all the underwater residents. And at number 2, a professional sleeper. These guys get paid $100,000 a year, literally just to sleep. They do this so scientists can analyse their sleep patterns, and no lie, they do get paid $100,000 a year. And at number 3, naming movies. This is an extremely easy job, and the people at Pixar get paid a massive $700,000 a year. And the man that named Cars got a massive $300,000 bonus.
Illegal places you can't go, but people went anyways. A few years ago, John thought it would be a good idea to visit the North Sentinel Islands, which was extremely illegal. And his goal was to know more about the tribe living there and also to introduce them to his religion. But as soon as he arrived on the beach, the Sentinels shot an arrow straight through his heart and consumed him in front of his friend that was still on the boat, because apparently the tribe thought that outsiders brought diseases and war. So this is why it's extremely illegal to go there.
This is one of the creepiest urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. So for like 30 years in Maine, there was this urban legend that there was a man who had lived in the woods for decades and would break into people's houses as they slept. Also, all of this is coming from this week's episode, which is about terrifying true urban legends and is part of our Dark Summer series. This legend basically started because in this one community in Maine, people would wake up in the morning to find that their fridges were empty. And so they all started joking with each other that there was someone breaking into their homes at night and just taking food from their fridge. And it was a huge joke until someone put up a security camera one night. And this is the video that was captured, and before you say anything, I don't know why it took them so long to put up security cameras. Everyone was shocked, not only because the rumor was true, but because this didn't look like a hermit that lived in the woods. It looked like it could have been one of their neighbors. But the crazy thing is, no one knew who this guy was. They put up flyers with his face on it, and no one in all of Maine recognized him. And it wasn't until almost 20 years later that they actually figured out who it was. His name was Christopher Knight, and he was a hermit living in the woods of Maine for 27 years. But here's the thing, it's not like he was stealing valuables from the neighbors. He was only stealing food, and he only took what he needed. So what do you think? Was he a bad guy? And make sure you listen to this week's episode wherever you get your podcasts.
Let me introduce you to the red kangaroo. Now there's a lot of kangaroos out there, but these ones are the ones that look like they could fold you like a pretzel. And honestly, they probably could. They get up to over 6.5 feet tall and over 200 pounds apiece. And they have so many ways to turn you past tense, it's not even funny. First off, they have a 975 pound bite force, which is equivalent to a lion. They can also balance on their tail and kick the soul out of you with 800 pounds of pressure. But I wouldn't worry about the pressure. I would worry about the surgical tools they have attached to their feet that will open you up like a fish. Speaking of fish, if you find yourself in water with them, let's just hope you have good lungs. They are excellent swimmers, and they know that we are not. So they might just bait you into the water and baptize you Until you see the light. And let's be honest, there's nothing you could do about that. These things are like negative 10% body fat. I get it. I mean, we've all thought about fighting a kangaroo at some point. Just don't fight this one. You'll thank me later. And as always, follow for more facts.
I handed my gun and I got underneath the table.
I understand. So is it safe to say that your gun was operable? That it fired?
I cannot say that my gun fired. I can say that my gun was more than likely operable. I didn't test fire it.
Can you state for the court how many times you heard gunshots?
I never stated at any time how many gunshots.
No, I'm asking you, did you hear any gunshots? And if you did, how many did you hear?
I don't know how many I heard. My ears were just ringing. It was hard for me to hear anything.
So you said that you left the apartment through the back door. You pointed the gun at me because I was trying to come out. And you also stated that Brian wasn't there at that time, right? When you did that, you pointed.
It was me and you. When I exited the first time, you were the one that were behind me. I don't know where Brian was. I did not see Brian. I was trying to keep you inside of the apartment.
And you said you ran down the street, several houses maybe? Is that what you said?
If I ran down the street, any houses, I only made it to 2 at the most.
Okay. And you said you heard Brian yell for you?
I did.
And that is when you climbed back up, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a video I would like to play.
What is it?
The video of everyone exiting the home.
And what's the relevance?
The witness is stating that he climbed back into the apartment, and that video shows something different.
I've heard of people catching crazy shit when they go magnet fishing, but evidence from a murder? So on April 14th, someone took their magnet to a creek in Georgia. And usually at the end of the day, you get a bunch of rusty metal and debris. I've done it before. But this guy pulls up a .22 caliber rifle. I would immediately think, oh, this was for sure used in a crime and immediately dumped. But this guy brushes it off. 2 days later, he goes back to the same spot, Horse Creek in Telfair County. And this time he pulls up a bag containing a cell phone, 2 driver's licenses, and credit cards. And it turns out it belonged to an elderly couple murdered back in 2015, and their case has still not been resolved. This is Bud Runyon and his wife June. Bud had posted an ad on Craigslist seeking a 1966 Mustang. 28-year-old Ronnie J. Towns saw that ad, and he messaged Bud saying he would be willing to sell his. But authorities say Ronnie never owned a Mustang and he was actually looking to rip the couple off. Ronnie had apparently been out of work for months and was living with his parents on their 200-acre property. So Bud and June drive 3 hours to meet up with Ronnie and get this car, but that's the last time they're ever seen or heard from. Days later, the couple's car was found in a lake and their bodies were found nearby. Ronnie Towns was charged with malice murder and armed robbery. And he's actually been sitting in jail for 9 years because his trial keeps getting delayed. Right now, his trial is scheduled for August, and this new evidence might seal the deal. And magnet fishing guy will definitely have to testify in court.
This 16-year-old truly believed that he was a 500-year-old vampire. Roderick Rod Farrell was born in March of 1980 in Murray, Kentucky. When his parents had them, they were teenagers themselves, and right after he was born, his father left to go to the military. His mother, Sandra, was the one who raised him, and they lived on and off with her parents for years. At the age of 5, Rod was essayed by his grandfather, but no charges were ever filed. When they weren't living with her parents, they would live in public housing, and Sandra would work as an exotic dancer. Sandra admitted to dabbling in vampirism, and as soon as Rod was a teenager, he followed in her footsteps. Rod was a fan of fantasy role-playing games, and him and other teenagers would live this vampire lifestyle. While they were all together, they would all wear black, listen to gothic music, and drink each other's blood. Rod's mom was also in this vampire clan, and she would be writing letters to this 14-year-old boy who was also in the same clan, telling him that she was going to be his bride for eternity. In 1990, Rod and his mom ended up moving to Florida since her parents got a home over there. Once Rod began living there, he met a girl named Heather Wendorf, who was described as a troubled teen who would disobey her parents every time they would ask her to clean her room. Once Rod moved back to Kentucky in the 10th grade, he would still keep in contact with Heather, and since they were on the phone so much, this would cause very expensive phone bills, and her parents wanted to put a stop to it. Back in Kentucky, Rod told people that he was a 500-year-old vampire, and he began recruiting followers. It seemed like Rod was recruiting troubled teens, and in October of 1996, they all broke into an animal shelter and killed 2 puppies. In November of 1996, Rod and 3 others drove all the way to Florida from Kentucky to pick up Heather so that they could move to New Orleans to become a vampire family. On November 25th, everyone was at a cemetery so that Heather could cross over to become a vampire once she drank Rod's blood. Rod and Scott entered Heather's home to steal her parents' car so that they could take it to New Orleans, but while they were inside of the home, they also unalived her parents. Heather's 17-year-old sister is the one who found their parents' dead bodies, and apparently Heather didn't know that Rod was going to take the life of her parents. After 4 days on the run, police caught up with the group on November 28th. Once they were arrested, Rod claimed that he was being framed by a rival group of vampires. Scott pled guilty and was given 2 life sentences. Dana was given a 17-year sentence, and Charity was given a 10-year sentence. As for Rod, he pled guilty to 2 counts of murder, and he will be released when he is 51 years old. As for Heather, she never got into any kind of trouble for her parents' death.
Most of the comments on this video are worried about that little guy, but he's fine. The snake's in trouble. Meet the mongoose. They only get up to about 10 pounds, but let me tell you, that is the most ruthless 10 pounds on planet Earth. It's like a hyper-aggressive, condensed version of John Wick. That's a fully carnivorous hunter. And they're literally designed to fight snakes. Specifically venomous snakes. Like they prefer venomous snakes. King cobras, spitting cobras, vipers, rattlesnakes. It's on site. But basically how they do it is they have a faster reaction speed than a cat, which is basically teleporting. So they can avoid all the snake's bites. And once it gets close enough, it'll bite the snake's head, instantly crushing the skull. But the crazy part is even if they do get bit, it's not that big of a deal. They have a protein in their body that binds to the protein in snake venom and digests it, like food. So usually a venomous snake bite will just knock them out for 10 or 15 minutes. And then it's on to round 2. Moral of the story, again, don't worry about him. He's not stuck in there with the cobra. The cobra's stuck in there with him. And as always, follow for more facts.
Part 3 to Abandoned by Disney. Whenever he felt like time changed, he stepped into what looked like a post. I should not have put this on my eyebrows. Let me rip this. Did that take any? Oh, it took some eyebrows. Stepped into what looked like a post-apocalyptic world. Nothing there had been stolen or broken. There was just notepads, old food, chairs, TVs, pins, scattered paper that was almost melted into the floor, and a room that was labeled character preparation. He wanted to go in, but it was closed. Tried to force the door open several times, but was completely unsuccessful, so he just decided to walk away. But after walking away, he heard a slight click and the door opened up. Walking inside, he was using the light of his phone, but he could hear a faint electrical buzz. There was a string of lights that intermittently flashed on the ceiling, and he felt as though they were going to burst at any second, but suddenly they just got dim. There were character costumes that were hung up all around the room like corpses. The image of all of it was quite shocking, and he walked over to a Mickey Mouse costume that didn't quite look like how it was supposed to. It was lying in the center of the room, and the fabric had deteriorated a lot. There was a lot of holes in it. One of the weirdest things about it is that the colors weren't right. It was almost inverted, white where the black should be and black where the white should be. And it was so startling that he just started to photograph the other costumes that were within the room. And picking up the head of the Donald Duck costume to get a better photo of it, he realized that the eyes were just a little bit too big and seemed like they were staring back at him. And this is whenever he heard a startling crash. Looking to the ground, there was a seemingly human skull that had fallen out of the Donald Duck head. The skull had crashed at his feet, and he just dropped the head and started to go back towards the door. But as he approached the exit, he realized that he was going to be needing proof if anyone was to believe him of this, so he turned back around, and never do this in real life, he turned back around and went back to go get a photo. But when he turned back around, this is whenever he saw that the Mickey costume and whatever might be inside of it was starting to move. Absolute disbelief, he was just backing up away from it, repeating the words no, 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 over and over again. Heart pounding, legs quivering, he picks up the camera to take a photo of it, but realizes looking from the camera that he appears pixelated. Only the silhouette of him can really be made out, and he drops the camera on the floor. Picks up the camera and it has gone completely black. Whenever the inverted Mickey says in a very low, disturbing voice, "Hey, do you want to see me take off my head?" As he did this, he began to tug at his large costume head. Slowly, this lumpy, blood-like substance started to ooze from it. And then at the sound of the tearing of the fabric, Ben just took off running. And before leaving the threshold of the room, he saw, etched into the back of the metal, "Abandoned by God." The story goes that he never took those photos off his camera, never wrote any kind of blog about it. The second he left, he understood why there was no information about that area, and why Disney didn't want anyone to know about it either. They didn't want anyone like him getting in, and they didn't want any of this information getting out. This is one of those stories that I remember reading in middle school and just not being able to sleep for weeks. And even though this is obviously just a story, there are some very creepy Disney facts. So if you guys want to know any of those, just let me know.
The only thing more baffling to me than missing persons cases are when that missing person then reappears over a decade later. She literally came back from the dead. She'd been declared legally dead years earlier. It was 2002 in Lititz in Pennsylvania. Brenda Heis was a seemingly normal mother of two from the area who was working as an accountant. She had a son and a daughter aged 12 and 8. Now, on the day she vanished, everything seemed to be fairly normal. She put some food out to defrost later, and she took her kids to school. She'd been doing a good job of keeping the normal household routine together despite the fact that she was actually going through a divorce. It kind of seemed to everybody like her kids were keeping her going, keeping her in a normal routine. That's why it was so worrying when she all of a sudden just vanished. She never picked her kids up from school that day. She never even contacted anybody to say where she was. Now, obviously, due to her recent divorce, police started looking immediately into her ex, her husband. As bad as it sounds, they were wondering if he had killed her out of anger, revenge, or for financial gain. But her husband Lee seemed just as confused as everybody else, to be fair, and just as eager to get her home. Months and months went by with absolutely no sign of the missing mother. There was also no sign of foul play, no reason to believe any harm had come to her. Years and years rumbled on, and eventually Lee actually went to court to have her declared legally dead. He was then obviously able to remarry if he wanted to. He was able to claim on her life insurance policy too. Now, this again did kind of raise some eyebrows in the community. Neighbors did feel kind of suspicious of him about this, but really nobody had any proof. And sadly, her children had come to terms with the fact that their mum wasn't coming home. That was until 11 years later. Bear in mind, her family really had moved on at this point. Her daughter Morgan was 19 years old. She was attending college. She'd had a whole chunk of her childhood without a mum, when all of a sudden, into a police station in Florida, walked Brenda. By this point, it was April 2013. So many years had gone by. She told police officers that she was a missing woman, and at first they were a little bit confused, but she gave them all her details. She then revealed her absolutely unbelievable story to authorities. She said the day that she vanished, she did so of her own accord. She'd suddenly randomly decided on the spur of the moment to join a bunch of hitchhikers who were homeless, who were moving to Florida. She decided to abandon her children to sleep on the streets and sometimes even scavenge in bins for food. She would sit on the street corners and beg for money. She'd obviously not told anyone her real name, and she'd just been sharing tents with strangers and sleeping rough. And the only reason she wanted to hand herself in was that she was tired of being homeless. And when her children found out, they were understandably pretty upset and angry and reluctant to reunite with her. And honestly, I don't know how I would deal with that. I don't know how I would process that information. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think you would ever be able to forgive your mum for doing that?